the crisis of inequality, that is just when we think, population is starting to plateau at many places, we're being told that we have the crisis of aging. Just when we thought that we are seeing unprecedented prosperity, we are confronted with the crisis of inequality. So it's very clear that we are in the age of perhaps Tarzan, where we swing from one crisis to another. And what is more interesting is that, of course, in every age, in every era, there have been crises. But when it comes to our era, we don't have any time to actually thrive on any particular trend before we move to a crisis with that very trend. For instance, when we discovered, say, the use of petroleum in the mid 19th century, we had a while before when we really enjoyed all the benefits that petroleum gave us, from lighting to energy to transportation, before we started seeing its harmful side effects in terms of carbon emissions. We had a while when we enjoyed sugar after discovering sugar in the Americas, before we started seeing the side effects in terms of diabetes or obesity. But today we have no time. It's almost as if when cell phones came in, when social media came in, it was barely a few years before we went from enjoying the benefits of the achievement as humanity to that we went into seeing the side effects and the absolutely disastrous side effects of that particular achievement. In fact, when artificial intelligence the era of age of artificial intelligence was heralded barely a year or a year and a half ago, we had Sam Altman announce almost as soon as ChatGPT hit everyone's screens that please come and regulate us. Artificial intelligence is going to soon become a threat. It's unregulated and it is likely to create all kinds of problems. We didn't even have a few days before we started worrying about AI. So this is the age we live in. Flourishing is all about the very word itself speaks to a certain permanence. It speaks to having being in a state wherein we celebrate an achievement that lasts for a while, that lasts not just for a while in terms of days and weeks and years, but perhaps for generations. And this is why, if we want to, as the community that has pioneered, as a community that has tried to mainstream flourishing into every aspect of our work, if we want to take flourishing further and as far as humanity's imagination can go, then we need to bring it into the halls, into the corridors of power, into the halls where policymakers meet and discuss. And that's where global flourishing goals had its inception. And since flourishing is about permanence, the way the global flourishing goals was articulated, and it's really wonderful that we have not the full team, but at least uh, I'd say 60% of the team, with Elena, Matt, and Brandon, all of whom worked. I mean, it took us, I don't know, every week we were, sometimes there were times when we met twice a week, but over a few months in 2022, we must have we zoomed the life out of Zoom in these calls to debate and find what global flourishing goals potentially could be. And what we found was one, I would perhaps say, element that went through all the goals, and that is perhaps best encapsulated in the word relationship. We found that what makes flourishing permanent, or as long as something as mortal as the human life would allow it, is the strength of a relationship. So whether it is relationship between humans, whether it is relationship between an individual and their state, between an individual and the economy in which they are living, whether it is between an individual and her environment, or it is between our species and other species, other life forms, as Matt put it, that we share this planet with. And last but not least, whether it is a relationship that we have with our inner self in terms of mental health and well-being. In all of them, we see this word recur, and that's relationship. That's the essence of what we found to be perhaps the word that's inextricably linked with flourishing. And that's what global flourishing goals are all about. How do we strengthen this relationship across all the layers, from the individual, uh, from inside the individual to outside the individual, to between individuals and between species? So with that said, we were able to frame a paper, and with a lot of thanks to Katie, Emmy, everyone who encouraged us, Mami, Veronica, all of you were, I mean, it was priceless. Your support was priceless. I'd like to do the celebration, if I may, of the Global Flourishing Goals Day, which we hope will become an annual event every year on the 16th of May, which happens to be, by the way, the International Day of Living Together in Peace and uh, peace and understanding. It's a General Assembly resolution for this, so we thought there was no better day. So when, in fact, we spoke to the Mahatma Gandhi Institute about the flourishing goals, we suggested 16th May as the day to hold the conference, and that happened to be the day. That's why that Global Flourishing Goals got launched last year, and we hope that this will become an annual event. So with that, the way we'd like to perhaps do this is through the medium of um, bringing flourishing into every language, wherever we are on the planet. So may I request, I had shared a small passage from the paper, from the Global Flourishing Goals paper, with everyone who had been invited. So may I request um, uh, Veronica, as the first one, in fact, who had responded, to read for us the first line of this passage. It's about 10 lines, but maybe if you can read that first line in Spanish.
Sorry, Raja.
Eri, welcome. Welcome, Eri. Thank you so much for joining. Please, right in time. Over to you, Veronica.
Just where do I have to read it? I just entered, so I'm a little bit lost. Sorry, I'm late. I was in class. Where do I read it?
Sure,
Where is
sure,
the
sure.
passage? It's in your in the
Sure.
email.
Yes. The very first line, Veronica.
Yes.
Florecimiento significa.
Yes, the one is I'll send it now to you. I'll read it now. I'm opening, sorry. Florecimiento significa igualdad y oportunidad sin obstáculos para que todos los individuos expresen su propia capacidad de acción y encuentren un cumplimiento significativo en todas sus relaciones. El florecimiento reconoce la vulnerabilidad de los marginados y desfavorecidos y proporciona un enfoque ético claro para la formulación de políticas.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you so much. So say flourishing means equal and unhindered opportunity to all individuals to express their own agency and find meaningful fulfillment in all their relationships. Flourishing recognizes the vulnerability of the marginalized and underprivileged and provides a clear ethical focus for policy making. This second line, may I request Mami from Flourishing recognizes to if you can articulate this in Japanese, please. Mami?
Maybe having tech trouble.
Okay. So then I will I'll take if you don't mind, then I will actually call upon a guest actually who from India, also happens to be related to me. So a bit of so may I request Mr. Balishwar, who has joined, to read the second line in a language that is not a UN official language, or not very popular, but happens to be a very the second largest spoken language, at least in India, Telugu.
Good morning, and in my mother tongue I say Namaste. That's how we greet. Coming to this, I will read out.
Thank you so much. I will now request our very own team, the team that was worked on the paper, to take up and articulate what the 5 global flourishing goals are. May I request Matt start with the very first goal.
Thank you for the invitation. So the first goal is life satisfaction, including through a comfortable standard of living.
Matt, actually, as one of the framers of the paper, would you like to actually expand on this a bit in your own words?
Yeah, so life satisfaction is often understood as a kind of holistic appraisal of how life is going up to this point. And so it's not just about kind of last week or today, but it's sort of like, how is my life going? And so it was important for us to include something about a standard of living within this. And we debated about that at length. And I think we landed on this comfortable standard of living where people are not in distress, but it's not required that we all be materially wealthy, but that we be satisfied with our lives within a comfortable standard of living. So that was the consensus of the group.
Thanks so much, Matt. Elena?
And on the idea that pursuing excessive wealth is actually harmful to other people and to all living things in the planet. So there's got to be a kind of balance in there. So that was important to our discussion as well. That was important to our
Thank you so much. I feel immensely moved at this important moment of bringing us back to take us forward, Raja. I'm so grateful for your leadership as well throughout all of this. So holistic health and well-being was our second global flourishing goal. And we deliberated that the momentum around flourishing and really all we should have learned collectively from the pandemic is not only how important health and well-being is, beyond the focus on happiness and the mental aspects of it, what some of our friends within this community emphasizes brain health. I'm thinking of Andrew Nevin in particular here. But I think for us, it was also embracing, and allow me to be Greek for a moment, evzin, the good life. The good life is beyond eudaimonia, as I have been continuing to study, going back to Aristotle, because eudaimonia is also potentially superficial flourishing, whereas evzin, the good life that is founded on holism, this sense of an all-roundedness around health and well-being is so imperative to a sense of growth and capacity for resilience.
I think you're muted, Raja.
Yes, thank you so much. You will never get used to Zoom. But thank you so much for connecting us back, Elena, to Aristotle, whose foundational work was such a recurring theme actually in our debates. I will request Brandon to take us through our third goal, the third global flourishing goal. Brandon?
Brandon's just driving, so she may not be able to talk.
Katie, would you do the honor for the third?
So kind, thank you. Fulfilling social, political, and economic relationships. And yeah, absolutely wonderful to hear you, Raja, just say how utterly foundational and fundamental relationships are to flourishing. Without really warm, caring, generative relationships with ourselves, with others, with the economy, with the planet, with all living creatures, yeah, we can't possibly flourish. So brilliant, love that. Number 3, thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Brandon is back. I see here. Brandon, would you like to come in? Would you be able to? Okay.
Okay, here I am.
Yes.
But Matt, if you could put that back in the chat, I'm not sure where we left off there, and I can't see my chat anymore. Sorry, everyone. I'm en route from Santa Monica, California to Big Sur, and a little bit out of the best range.
If you can, Brandon. So Katie did the honor of reading out for you the third global flourishing goal. That is
meaning and purpose,
fulfilling social, political, and economic relationships. If you could, maybe expand on that and on our another thought behind that, please.
Delighted
Elena,
to. Yeah, delighted to. I think this really goes back to the heart of what Raja was sharing about relationships being at the center of flourishing. And we talked a lot in the group about the different sectors in which we have relationships, our social relationships with our neighbors, our political relationships with policymakers, our economic relationships, and also the degree to which flourishing can be defined at the individual level, the local, with our relationship with ourselves, the local and regional level, and our relationship with those with whom we have social context, and that the goals can then even aggregate up to the state and global level. So I think that relational thread pulls us all the way from the individual that Raja was mentioning to the societal and global, and also helps us pull the thread across the different domains of our lives and the different sectors through which we work to instantiate flourishing.
Thank you so much, Brandon. With that, may I request Eddie to come in on the fourth goal, meaning and purpose, please. Eddie? Eddie, you there? Okay. Okay, no issues, Eddie. Would you like to type, the thought behind, that particular goal, meaning and purpose, in your own words? Okay. Otherwise, I can read out a bit what we have in the paper. There is, I see Eddie. Okay, fair enough. Let's go just to articulate, and Eddie, please feel free to share your thoughts whenever, even if it is through text. But just to say a few words here on meaning and purpose. the reason we had this as a goal is because we found that a whole lot of the crisis related to that we see in the modern world, whether it is the case of incels resorting to violent extremism, uh, terrorism in many cases cannot be explained, is not dealt with in any of the global goals that we have right now. We cannot the very simple thing of prejudice, how prejudice and bigotry we are seeing on campuses worldwide right now, these clashes, these protests, the counter protests, the human uh, element, the very human emotion of anger, that is often a manifestation, sometimes a manifestation of prejudice and bigotry, and sometimes, of course, that ends up in violence. How do we address this? What is there any framework in the world that can address this comprehensively, alongside material growth, or alongside reinforcement of trust between individuals and institutions? Can we? And that's where this came up. And I am so happy to what Eri has written here. Elena, would you like to read out for us what Eri has written?
So Eri says, I think we have a crisis of meaning. This is exasperated within modern capitalist societies. We need to find ourselves sane, helpful, and purposeful in life. This is so beautifully put, Eri. You are wonderful. Thank you so much. We're very lucky to have you.
Thank you so much, Eri. Thanks for putting it so succinctly. And that brings us to the fifth and final goal. By no means final, perhaps, because this paper itself is an invitation for us to think and expand further, which is and we don't have Jim here. Really missing Jim right now, and also Andrew and Elizabeth. So, but maybe if I may request, Emmy, if you don't mind, may I request you to read out the fifth goal for us, please?
Was that Eri or Emmy? I wasn't sure.
No, it's you. It's you.
Perfect.
Very much.
Thank you so much, Raja. I'd love to. The fifth goal is contributing to the flourishing of all life forms, including plants and animals. A brilliant goal.
So one interesting way, if I can say this from from our drafting team side, is that we pictured humans as a natural resource. In other words, when we talk about natural resources, we think of water, minerals, whatever it is. But here we're talking about humans as a resource to nature, for regeneration of nature. As we saw during the pandemic, for instance, some species actually came back from the brink. In fact, when humans were locked themselves up, these species actually suffered. There is now, in fact, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, has a green list, which is basically, they used to have a red list for species that are endangered. Green list is a list of species that has actually come back from extinction thanks to human intervention. So flourishing is essentially, in a way, we can contribute to this coming back. And Matt, because this is so closely tied to the principle of regeneration, maybe you can expand on this a bit, please.
Yeah, sure. I think it was important to all of us that we understand that flourishing doesn't come at the expense of others, non-humans, plants, animals, or the life-sustaining systems that we all depend on, but that flourishing is pursued as a contribution to all of the life-sustaining processes and all of the living things. And so we really felt like this principle of regeneration is better than just mere sustainability or zero impact, or, you know, a footprint that's not too damaging. But there's something, you know, really marvelous about understanding ourselves as making a positive contribution, something inspiring and energizing about the thought that we would pursue our flourishing together in ways that regenerate for all living things. And that seems like the appropriate horizon where we should fix our gaze. And you know, the more we sort of had that conversation, the more energizing it became. So if Jim were here, he would say that was sort of an emergent big yes for us.
Indeed. In fact, when we think of it, I think the regenerative element was this was because all the goals that we have, every I would say step that we have taken together as humanity, that we have, you know, that we should think not just as nation states but together. And whenever we talked about, articulated it in any international convention anywhere, it's all about, okay, how do we make life better for humans? How do we make, you know, have better air, you know, development? Again, how do we ensure that there's prosperity for all people? It's always about people. But we are today aware enough to know that there will be no people unless other species also thrive. And this realization has, however, not yet percolated into policy making. At least has not yet been into articulating when it comes to policy making. And that's where the global flourishing goals, you know, it creates a new beginning. And the way we measure flourishing also, we have in the, you know, proposed in this very short paper. Actually, it's less than a paper. It's a, you know, it's a in this note, it's a bit new. We say that if you want to measure flourishing, don't do it as a government, don't do it as a state, as each one country versus another. This is not a race. After all, these borders, as we know, many of these borders were drawn up in the last 100 years or so, and we never know. You know, these borders have changed constantly in the last a couple of 100 years. So why should we, you know, particularly now, for those of you, you know, who are in Europe, you understand how meaningless these borders, you know, over which millions of people lost their lives barely 70 years ago, how meaningless they seem today. So if we remove this international the competition between nations, how else do we measure flourishing? We measure it at the level of the individual, in a city, at the level of the citizen, and at the level of the community. So one thing we have articulated is, we ask every citizen, maybe every year, do you believe you are flourishing, and do you believe your community is flourishing? And when we say community, we don't mean the neighborhood. We don't mean the people with your last name. We don't mean people, you know, of, you know, maybe who live in a territorial, in your territorial proximity. But community, we mean any community you define yourself to belong to, any one community. It could be your professional community. Maybe Scott, you know, for you, you know, it's as someone who molds, you know, young minds. Maybe for someone else, it is someone who works in business, and maybe if Veronica, you know, for you it could be the community of teachers. For someone it could be, for Mami, you know, it could be somebody, you know, the community of you know, those who are I mean, of counselors. They, whichever community you identify with, even if it is just your gender, that is also your community. So are you flourishing? Is your community flourishing? That's it. And this, on the basis of this, we aggregated at the individual, community, regional, and global level. And when we say regions, by the way, also, that was another thing we discussed. What is a region? Should we say a region is I don't know, the west of Africa, South America, you know, South Asia? Or should we actually talk about, given that we are in the Anthropocene, climatic regions? So Even when it comes to regions, we have encouraged those who read the paper and to talk about regions from a climatic perspective, to recognize the relationship that climate has to our own flourishing. So maybe the entire tundra is one region. All those who live in countries with temperate climates, they comprise one region. So at that level, you aggregate flourishing, and then we know whether we as a species are flourishing or not. Last, I wish Eri, I had your. I'm sorry that your mic is is not working. But Eri had a beautiful principle that he had brought out in this course of it, is a mechanism to check whether we are on course, whether a mechanism for every individual to check whether, because of this global flourishing goals can sometimes sound very global. So at an individual level, how can I say, or how can any of us say that we are flourishing, or that we are in alignment when it comes to the global flourishing goals? So goodness, uniqueness, agency in terms of making decisions for ourselves, responsibility for the planet through mutually respectful relationships, and ensuring dignity, to be treated as a person on equal moral and rational standing as any other human being. This is a framework for an individual to measure for themselves. So thank you, Eri, for that. And I invite you all to please read the paper which we have posted, and please share it as widely as you'd like to. We'd love to have people, critique it, come up with more, goals, come up with even indicators, because we left things at a certain point at a very, high level. And of course, we'd love to see how the global flourishing goals, which are meant for, well, at least at the beginning, were meant for a policymaking audience, how they complement all the work that's being done, for instance, on love, when it comes to, and in domains like including in education. How do we link this up? How do we complement, and how do we bring it into the discussion on GFPs? Lastly, I'd like to read to you the very last line of this passage, that we have not yet, to be honest, over the past year, we have not made as much progress as we'd have hoped to since we launched the goals. But we also know that these goals are, they're not a one-year enterprise. They will take time. Over the past year, as you know, there's been an emphasis on accelerating the achievement of the SDGs. So there is, the world community is working on that goal. By 2030, we'll see. But it doesn't mean we have stopped, and it doesn't mean we're giving up, which is why we have this year. So the last line of this passage is that the global flourishing goals represent the promise of a flourishing future for humankind. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, so many thank yous, Eri and Raja and Veronica and Elena and Matt and Jim in his absence, and Brandon, who's driving. I'm so grateful to you all. What an inspiring and hopeful message. Just amazing. And I really hope that we can come back and loop back to this and celebrate more and ask loads of questions. And please keep updating us on how this is going. And hopefully you can talk to us in person at the conference about it. But we've got 9 minutes left. So I'm just going to request that we don't ask questions now on this, but we put it as an agenda item in our next meeting, because I would absolutely be so grateful if anyone who's coming for the conference could just tell me one hope that they have for the conference, and I'll write them down in the chat, and we'll hopefully try and fulfill those at least to some extent. So Emmy, do you want to start us off? What's one hope you have for the conference?
Thank you so much, Katie. I think I would love there to be the deep connections. The first conference was amazing because the depth of relationships we formed then sparked all these networks and ideas. So I'd like it to be that so inclusive for people who haven't met the group before in person, and that everyone feels welcomed, valued, and then goes out and has these ripple effects. We were at an amazing conference with Matt, where they talked about how these 31 wolves had transformed the whole of kind of like Yosemite or something, or somewhere cool. And I would like it to be that kind of powerful sending out of everyone from there to make a difference. So that was too long. I'm going to pass on.
Perfect. And Veronica, what's one hope you've got for the conference?
I think was very much in the line of Emmy. So for me was to reconnect personally again. So I think that's one, because those connections give us a lot of energy. And well, another desire maybe is related, like how can we continue to build this network so we can help, bring about these flourishing goals up. It's being together, but also like to think for the future, to have hope on how can we bring these flourishing goals all together. So. I'm really looking forward to see you all and to practice my English.
Oh, thank you, Veronica. You have beautiful English. Harry.
So I hope to connect personally with each and every one of you. Most of you I have not met in person. And I know that I'll be very energized by the entire experience, but I hope that it is such that it really pushes me forward in clarifying and energizing my own contribution to this effort.
Thank you so much. Awesome, Harry. So good. Emmy, can you possibly invite people and then I'll type? Thank you, because it'd be so cool to capture this.
Sorry, Katie, invite people to the conference. Haven't they already got the invite? Was that what you said?
No, invite people to share their hopes, because I'm having a delay and we need to.
Oh,
Is that right?
Sorry, mine keeps freezing too. Let me try, but I keep hearing.
No, don't worry. I'm good actually. Scott, what are your hopes?
It's not unlike what everyone said so far. It's really just about reconnecting with old friends and getting to know new friends and learn more about what you're doing. There's, I met with Ari at the Jubilee conference, and we met on the last night right before I got on the plane in person for the first time. And so we need to pick up where we left off. But many of you I've had great conversations with, and I really look forward to catching up. And the beautiful part of this for me is I think this is really going to kind of set off the rest of my year. I've got a really busy fall, but immediately following the conference, my wife and my two sons who are in their late 20s are going to go to Scotland with us. And so I'll get to spend time flourishing there with my family on the back end of the conference. So I'm going to come back to Texas, recharged, rejuvenated, and flourishing to help all the people here in the system flourish. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Love it. Thank you so much, Scott. That's brilliant. Elena.
Because my connection seems to be unstable, I wrote mine: reunion, an affirmation of our strong relationship as a community. I'm coming back just to be with you. That's enough for me. I'm flourishing just by the thought. Imagine what will happen when it actually happens, that we'll be together again. Thank you.
Too good. Thank you, Elena. Kimara.
Wow, everything that I had hoped for has already been said, but I guess I will add that I am so energized about the prospect of also just learning from the approaches and the ways that each of you are doing the work that you're doing in your spaces. And like everyone else has said, I think that's just going to really energize me to keep going as well. But mostly I can't wait to meet all of you in person. I feel like I kind of fangirl every time you all are on the screen. So the idea that I get to be in person with you is pretty exciting.
Us too. Thank you so much, Kimara. John, how about you?
I was building off the connections. I was almost thinking sparking collaborations. I got to sit next to Jim last year, and then Jim reached out to me about a project we're doing and has helped me with the research. So I just think, having these deep connections that can lead to impactful collaborations is my sort of hope.
Thank you so much. Yeah, connections for impactful collaborations. Awesome. Thank you so much, John. Brilliant. Raja.
Yes, thank you. Just to say that I am hoping that once again we talk of action, and I think that's a key word for us. I think while we meet each other, network, but we should also look at. I think one of the beauty also of our community is that we have people from very different domains, walks of life, pursuits, all finding common ground, and then looking at how we can take these discussions into our respective domains. But perhaps it is time to also create, domain specific groups, wherein we can talk about how we take flourishing into each domain, customize it, adapt it, whatever it is. Because given that we live in this age of specialization, so that's just a thought. We'll see how it goes, but that's just a thought I'm coming with.
Thank you so much. Brilliant. David.
I'm very excited to come meet you all in person for the first time. Thank you for welcoming me into this group. And so everything that people have said about connection so far, I'm really looking forward to that. I have a very specific thing that I'm thinking about quite a lot, and it might sound a bit prosaic compared to the things that other people have said, but I'm really interested in the idea of virtue. The specific virtues and virtue, and maybe more broadly character, and how it can be brought into a business setting, how we might apply that at Barry Waymler. So anyone who has thoughts, wisdom on that, I'm looking forward to having some of those kind of conversations with you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Is anyone else coming in and able to speak, kind of has the ability to kind of speak from where they are? Cool. Matt, I know you can't make it, but do you have any hopes for us?
Well, my hope is always the pursuit of truth in the company of friends, and truth informed by love. So I'm delighted that you'll all be together, and really sad not to be there, but my spirit will be with you.
What a way to end that. Sorry, go on, Emmy.
The same.
I was going to say, Claire's looking forward to meeting us all for the first time. She can't speak and just says she loves the Global Flourishing Girls. What a fantastic piece. We're all buzzing, Raja. So that was, it's been amazing.
Amazing. Oh, and Matt, sorry, I missed the last bit about truth and love. Please, can I have the exact quote? Let's finish off with love. We must.
I don't remember what I said, but it's always about the pursuit of truth in the company of friends. And that's sort of driven by love, something to that effect.
Perfect. Amazing. Oh my gosh, what a phenomenal hour. Can't thank you all enough. Just utterly dreamy. And I literally cannot believe that I'm going to see most of you in person in a month. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone. Thank you so much to all of our GFG team, especially Raja. So grateful. And yeah, can't wait to see you in a month. Take care, everyone.
And thank you, Katie.
Bye.
Thanks so much for organizing this, and for giving this, today for the celebration of the GFGs. Really, thank you so much. It means a lot.
Oh,
really,
special.
your leadership and keeping this community together. So a big hand to that. Thank you so much.
We need to do this once a year to celebrate.
Yeah.
Amen. Absolutely. Every 16th of May,